Hey guys, welcome back to Sako's Tech Spot. In this video, we're going to be talking about Zooper Widget. In my previous video, we talked about Nova Launcher, and Nova Launcher is basically the layout of your home screen and a couple of other parts of your phone. Just a little customization tweaks here and there, and mainly we're focused on the home screen just because that's going to be the grid where we're going to put all our widgets, and we're going to size them in certain ways. So we want to make sure we have a grid that's set up properly, and it's really up to you, whatever feels comfortable to you. But once we get familiar with Zooper Widget, you're going to have a better idea of how to set up Nova Launcher, and you're going to learn as you go, because it took me a while to get into the whole customization game, and I'm still learning, and there's a lot more. So let's just go right into it. I don't want to babble on. So the first thing we want to do is obviously install Zooper Widget, and in the Play Store, this is what the icon looks like. I have the Pro version. You can go ahead and get the free version if you want to do so. And these are all made within Zooper Widget, with the exception of this widget right here. That is not Zooper. That is a different widget, but we'll come back to that at another time. And these are all Zooper Widget, and so are these. So let's go into it. Here's a couple experimental ones. This is the Google News. This is not Zooper. This is also not Zooper. This is Google Calendar. First thing you want to do is, after you install it, is create a widget. And to do that, I'm sure you know how to use widgets, but you just hold the home screen, hit the widgets, and just, oh, I have it right here, Zooper. It's all the way on the bottom because it starts with a Z. At least mine's organized alphabetically. But there you go. So it doesn't matter which one you pick, because once you lay them, you could resize them to any size you want, which is pretty awesome. So I like to resize first before I get into Zooper, because once you resize it, that way it will configure itself inside Zooper Widget, so you don't have to measure it out and tell Zooper Widget. It'll just already know what size it is. And you'll see what I mean by that. So let's say, let's just create a square right now, I guess, just a little work area for us. And you want to use the shaded area as your guide. Even if the line is outside the shaded area, that's not where the sizing is. The sizing is the shaded area itself. If for some reason Zooper Widget is acting funny and doing that, there we go, that's fine. That's alright, square. We're just going to do a couple of examples. So this is what you'll be presented with in a brand new widget. And all widgets start out this way. So we have an empty to start brand new, a built-in to go off of a built-in template provided by Zooper, or one that's already saved to your SD card or your phone. And this is just auto-save. It just automatically saves while you're working with your widgets. We're going to start off with the empty one just because this is a little introduction to Zooper Widget. And in an empty brand new Zooper Widget, we have the layout, the widget background, the widget on-tap action, location, global preference, force update, widget name, calendar to display, and scaling. The rest is just, feedback for the developers. Widget name is just what you should name your widget. It's a good way to stay organized because as you can see, this is widget 292, and I have not named mine. And when you're going to choose widgets based on their name inside of Zooper Widget, and you'll see that what I mean later when we try loading widgets, it's going to be difficult to know which one you were working on exactly, because the names are going to all be just numbers. So it's good to organize yourself, but don't take after my bad habit of not naming them. I mess with these so much, I don't think it's worth it for myself. But if you want to stay organized, name your widget. Next thing, calendar to display. This is, I should blur out my emails there, but they're basically what calendars you want Zooper Widget to show if it's a calendar widget. This is not a calendar widget, so there's no checkboxes, or at least we're not going to make it a calendar widget, not yet at least. That'll be in probably the next video. So force update, this will force the widget to update itself. Like if it's a weather and you want to get the latest weather update, you could go ahead and force it to update on the spot right there. Now widget and on-tap action, this is good because this will open up applications or anything else really that you want to open up on your phone when you touch the widget on your home screen. That is good to do, but also there's hotspots that you could build into the widget, so you could have multiple hotspots on one widget, meaning you could have one section will allow you to open up the phone, one section will allow you to open up the alarm or something, one section will allow you to open up the calendar, and you could just designate them yourself. But if you do want just the widget to do one thing or go to one app, this is the one to use, and it'll just load up all the apps that you have on your phone, and then you can just choose which one you want to open. And we'll get more into this as well as we dive into other features in Zooper, because it is going to get pretty complex. These are just the basics that we're going to go over. So over here we have the widget background. It comes default when you make a new widget. It's going to be a little tinted, so if you want to have it cleared, you could go ahead and clear it. It's just a way for you to see on the home screen that it is in fact there, because if you just clear it now, you're not going to be able to see it. It's going to just look like a blank spot. So it's going to update itself and you'll see it just disappear, but it's still going to be there. Alright, there it is. That took a little while. That was weird. But it updated itself, and now if I touch it, we're going to go back into Zooper. Right now it's not set to any on-tap action, so it's just going to come back into the Zooper editor. So that's a good way to just go back and quickly edit your widgets. Just tap on them and come back. When you do set the on-tap action, it's going to override that, and you're going to have to go into the app itself and choose it manually. That's where the naming also comes in handy, because if you don't know the name, you're going to be scrolling around looking at just numbers and having to guess which number corresponds to which widget. So once again, name your widgets. Don't take after my bad habit. Next is where were we? Let's do global preferences. So preview background. This one will pretty much just show the background color here of your preview, and you could also use the real background. So this is the section of our background that we're working on right here. So it's going to crop that for us, and it's going to allow us to work on our widget in real time. I want to say real time just because you can see exactly how it's going to look when you put it on there. Refresh interval, how quickly you want the widget to refresh itself, if it's a weather widget or something like that. 30 minutes is the bare minimum. That's actually kind of a good thing, because it's going to kill your battery if it's anything quicker than that. If it's every 5-10 minutes, your battery's going to constantly be draining, because it's going to signal for an update every time, especially for weather and things like that use GPS and other battery intensive applications or hardware. So next, you could have the metric system if you prefer Celsius. Weather provider. Be careful with this one, because by default it comes here. Oop, I just clicked the wrong thing. By default it comes with, I believe it was called Open Weather or something like that. Let's go back and look at it. Yes, Open Weather Map. By default it comes on that, but I was having trouble getting weather readings from that provider, so I chose Yahoo, because it worked with Yahoo and not Open Map. So if you're experiencing trouble with any weather related things, change the provider and see if that helps. There's also hide all day events for calendars if you want to hide the all day events, obviously. Force English language. The main focus here is going to be layout. So layout is where all of your widget elements are going to go, and these can get pretty creative. I mean, you could really make anything you can imagine. So layout contains all the elements of your widget, meaning that everything that you're going to see on your widget is going to be made in here. And to add something to your widget, you just go to the plus sign. Pretty obvious. And then we're going to have text and rich text, and I'll go over the differences of that. We're going to have rectangle, which is not only rectangles, because you can make circles too, and we'll see more of that once we get there. Series, these are kind of like scrolling words and numbers. I guess like a list that kind of scrolls. You'll see what I mean by that. It's a pretty nice effect, and it allows a lot of customization, and you could put a lot of style in your widgets. Scalable icon set. These are just pictures that you could use for your battery and weather. If you have like a battery icon or a weather icon. Same with bitmap. A bitmap is more, I guess, colorful and more fancy pictures. And we'll see what I mean by that. I guess I could show you. That's pretty much what it is. It's it's not a monochromatic look. It's bright and all that. It looks nice, but it's a little too much for my liking. I like to keep it simple. Let's go ahead and delete that and go back in here. Progress bar, that's obvious. It's just a progress bar that shows things like, let me show you here. So these are the progress bars. All three of these are progress bars. Just doing some experimenting with them. This is my SD storage size, and this is my battery life and hours remaining. And in the middle, that's actually my RAM usage. But because it doesn't update that frequently, hence the 30-minute update situation, that is not going to update like it should in real time, so I can monitor my RAM usage. I was just testing it out to see if it would work, and it doesn't work. So there's that. And bitmap over here on the bottom, you could actually add any picture from your gallery if you wanted to. And that's pretty cool if you have stuff you edit in Photoshop, which I have done. I bring it into Zooper, and I can make widgets out of my Photoshop pictures. So we'll get more into that as well. You can get really, really creative with this stuff. So the first thing here is the text and the rich text, and the differences between them are written there, and you can go through them, but you might not fully understand all of them because there's things like BB code and multi-line and text margin support that may not fully make sense to you right now. But BB code is similar to HTML in the sense where you could put like little tags for the words to make them bold and italics, and I'll put examples of those over here, and we'll look more into that once we start messing with these. So text is this is just a basic text. There's nothing, you could get really creative with this too, but if you wanted to do things like multi-line where you could have text stack one under or on top of each other in a list sort of style, that would require rich text as opposed to text. The differences are pretty minimal, but there will be times that you want to use text instead of rich text, like if you're just going to have like one-liners, things like that. For rich text, you could have like the stacked clock that was made in rich text because it stacks itself and it's symmetric, so you don't have to worry about symmetry if you're aligning them. Things like that, and you'll understand more. These are not made in rich text. These are one-liners, so I just kind of kept those simple and left those as text. The rectangle here, this one is, you could just name these modules themselves too, and I should have went over that previously, but you can name your module. So that, let's just say it's a rectangle, but I'm going to call it a square. So see, now it's a square instead of having just a generic title such as rectangle, or rect in this case. Okay, so next thing you got here is a screen anchor. So the screen anchor is essentially just where you want to lock the element. So you could lock it on the center top. You could just read it here. So top left, we'll take it to the top left, bottom left, and this is just where you want to anchor it, and then that's where the 0 is going to be. That's the center point after you move it. So keep that in mind. Keep it to the center because that is the simplest way to make these widgets. I don't feel a need ever to lock it in a different location. So that's completely up to you. However you guys feel comfortable doing this. This is all. This is the freedom of Zooper. So X offset, move it left, move it right. Obvious. Y offset. It's just the X and Y axis. If you've taken any math in your life, you probably know that. Well, I guess past third grade or something. But module on tap, you could also assign on taps for specific elements as well as the hotspots for those elements. So you could assign a hotspot to the widget itself, to the elements of the widget, and to certain hotspots inside of the widget elements. So that's how detailed it can get here. And we're not going to go that far yet, but we might get there at some point in the future. So this is obviously the color of that square, and you can change it and make sure to tap once you choose your color. And also you could move on this color chooser slider here, and you could choose any color here. Creates a hexadecimal number that corresponds to that color. So I could go ahead and let's choose a bright color just so it stands out and blinds you guys. There you go. So now we have a nice yellow square. Here is the sizing of it. So this is obviously the width, how big you want to make the width, and how big you want to make the height. And now we have a bigger yellow square. Amazing, right? You probably could have figured that out on your own. So this is where the square no longer can become a square. The corners, this is the corner radius to be specific. So you could go ahead and as I tap this, you'll see the corners becoming more circular. Now I could get more aggressive here and create the full circle. Now you could also make things like ovals. So if I want to say put that to 100 and then make this wider, I now made an oval. Do you see where I'm going with this? You can make any shape you want really if you put enough rectangles on this widget. Okay, so let's go back to my square. That's what we started with, and I want to find my square again. There it is. And let's get rid of the corners. And, or let's bring back the corners, I should say. Let's get rid of the corner radius. Anyways, next up we have outline. Outline doesn't necessarily mean what you think it means, where it will put an outline around the square. What it's going to do is it's going to make the square turn into an outline. And let me show you what I mean by that. It's just going to take out the filling, and then it's going to start filling in from the sides. And eventually, if you go far enough, it's going to go back and fill the whole entire square. But there's no point to do that because you could just type in 0 and get the full square. And it even says right there, 0 equals filled. So if you want to create outlines of any thickness, you can go ahead and do that. We're going to keep it at 0 just for demonstration purposes right now. A rotation means exactly what you think. You could rotate it. And what's even cooler is you could rotate circles too. But that would make no sense. Curving. This will actually morph it, and it'll do exactly what it says. It's going to curve it. But let me do this. Let me make this thinner. And let's make this a little wider. And now if we do the curving, it'll be more dramatic of what's happening. So as you can see, it's starting to curve. And I'm going to just start jumping by increments of 10 just because it'll be more dramatic effects. And you see what's going on here? It's curving it at one side. Now you could, manipulate it and move things around. Let me actually, it's kind of hard to play around with it because it gets a little confusing of what the height and the width are. So I just remember playing with the height to make it thicker or less thick. So there's that. And you could even rotate this so I can now make it look like that. See, it's rotating on its own axis. The center point is not where it should be centered for the X and Y up here. It's at its own center point. So keep that in mind. When you make these, you could get kind of lost if you're curving them. And you could actually make these full circles, so you don't have to worry about that. And that's what these progress bars are. They're just progress bars in the shape of curved rectangles. Drawing mode. So this one is a little tricky, and I still don't fully understand all of them. Just if you guys have better understanding, or if you could point me in the direction to get a better understanding of these, then by all means, please do so. The first three make the most sense to me. Normal is obviously the way it's normally drawn, which is this yellow square. Clear completely clears it. XOR. I believe this means crossover. That's the only thing that makes sense to me, because let me show you. Right now it looks like just normal. It looks normal, correct? And I'm just going to bring it back to normal, and then we're going to play around with this. So I'm going to create another one. I'm going to make a rectangle, but we're going to call this circle just to, well, we are going to create a circle, and we also want to be organized as I'm trying to teach you guys. So we're going to keep it centered just for simplicity. Let's make this, let's make it a little smaller than the circle or the square. And what we'll do is, where's the corner? Did I pass it? Rotation, I passed corner. There it is. So we're going to do that. Okay, and let's make this black, or let's make it red so it stands out. Okay, so we have a red circle and a yellow square. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you what clear does and XOR. So clear is going to completely clear it out, and you're going to see right through it. Okay? I lost my place. I lost my place again. XOR is going to do the same thing, but it's going to do that. It's not going to completely clear it, because if I completely clear it now, it's going to be completely gone. That was confusing for me in the beginning and took a while to figure out. That's what crossover is. It crosses over into the next element, and it kind of wipes it away, it gives it a really, really cool effect. And what's even cooler is you could do this with anything. You could do this with text, you could do this with the calendar events, you could really have anything do this. So if you are more creative than me, you could construct a really cool widget. And we'll get back to the clock and the calendar and stuff, but this is just a really cool effect. There's the only three I've really experimented with, because it's just, there's so many. And I'm not even sure what some of these do, because they don't even add much to at least to my shapes that I make. Maybe they only work with specific shapes. But there you have it. That's what the drawing mode is. Clear completely gets rid of it, and XOR crosses over, as I think that means, and it'll still keep its shape, or it could still be seen, although it's not on top of another element. So let's keep going. Now let me do this. Let me just take the drawing mode back to normal. And we're going to play around with the blur, because the blur is just drop shadow essentially. It's not necessarily like a text outline. You can't really use it in that sense because it is really blurry. And let me show you what I mean by that. Let's move back to the center here. And as you can see, it's becoming more of a black outline the more I tap it here. And you could change the offset of it, so you could have it kind of looking like a lighting effect. You see that? So now it looks really like a drop shadow. And you could use X and Y axis in conjunction. And if you go higher in the numbers for the Y axis, the lower you go, and the bigger numbers go to the right. So keep that in mind. But as you can see, it creates a little drop shadow. And that's kind of neat. So in certain scenarios, that could look nice. I definitely use that in this. So I don't know if you could catch that, but under the white square here is a drop shadow, making it kind of look like it's popping upwards a little bit. And I don't know if I use it on the bottom square. I can't tell because the background's a little dark. But I did that for all of these, except for that one, for obvious reasons. And there's our current widget, looking all fancy. And at this point, I'm confident that I can get rid of this widget background. Let's clear that out. And that looks even better. That one updated pretty quick. I'm glad. Okay, so let's go back here. What's left? Okay, here. So you could also change the color of your blur, so you could have a white blur effect, which looks like that, and that looks actually pretty freaking ugly. So let's try blue. And for whatever reason, you have to tap first before you can use a slider, or at least in my situation, you have to. So that also looks kind of funny. But yeah, you could change the color. Personally, I don't need blur right now. These are just demonstrations, and it looks really ugly to look at. So we're going to have that there. Gradient mode. This changes the color scheme to be, away from a solid color, and you can have a linear gradient. As you can see, it starts from a black on the bottom, works its way up. We can make it a nice, make it yellow. Can we have a cool effect? Yeah, like it's fading in from the square. That's kind of, see what I'm doing here? Just playing around with it and coming up with nice ideas. And there's a gray gradient. Try saying that 10 times faster. Let's try green. That looks Christmassy. You can also change the angle of it. They gave you preset angles. You cannot fine tune them, which is a little disappointing to me. But you have 90 to 45 degrees, negative 90 to negative 45 degrees, and etc., etc., etc. And you could also do a radial blur, which is a circular kind of, you can see it right there. Let me put it black so you can see the contrast. So it's a circular blur instead of a straight, not blur, what am I saying? Gradient. Just kind of fades between colors. So a radial blur, you cannot rotate it because it just wouldn't make sense. It's a circle. So that's grayed out. Advanced parameters. We have to come back to this because this can get pretty interesting. This is where we get into, I don't want to say programming, but we're going to be talking about variables, and we're going to be using parameters, and we're going to be sending information back and forth. This is where Zooper really gets fun. So let me explain a little bit of what these are. So these progress bars, they change colors depending on the percentage. So right now it's a darker green. When it passes, I believe it's 75%, it's going to turn into a very light green, a very bright green, more life to it. When this goes below, I want to say 50%, I think it turns into orange, and then it goes red under 35. I don't remember exactly. You know what? Let me show you exactly how I set this up. So this is the layout, white background, which is the white widget background. And then in the layout, as you can see, I did not name mine. Naughty me. So this is, when you select them, it does single out the selected item. So that's kind of cool. And let's see, yeah, there you go. This is the one. It doesn't matter what you set these as because, well, for me it doesn't matter because I set it to change color. Only the background really matters, but you'll see what I mean by that when we get to the, let's just jump right to it. So advanced parameters. Okay, let's go over this really quickly. I'm just going to do a really brief overview because we're going to go into more detail about this at another time. But this is basically algebra in a very fancy looking way and very confusing looking way, I should say. So we're going to focus between this $sign and this $sign. I'm just going to go over the first one because the rest are just copies of it. Well, copies that I manipulated a little bit. But so this first one says between the hashtags, you're going to have a variable. And my variable is my battery level because that's what this progress bar is. It's a battery level progress bar. So BLEV_N is the variable, which stands for battery level number. So that's the percentage number, not the actual percentage, just the number part of it. And if that is less than 100, double ampersand is and battery level N, the number, is greater than or equal to 75. This question mark, think of that being then, THEN. So if this and this are true, then do this. CF, this is a variable, or not even a variable, that's a hexadecimal. This is a hexadecimal color that I showed you previously. It's going to say then change the color of the foreground progress bar to that value. Now that is as clear as I can make it because the rest are essentially the same thing for different values. If the battery level is less than 75 and the battery level is greater than or equal to 35, change then, question mark is then, right there, then change the color of the foreground to this value. And then you have another one here. If it's less than 35, then change it to red. We should have just started with this one because this one doesn't have an and. You don't need to have an and because if it's less than 35, it's going to be less than 35 and 0 is included in that. So there you have it. So this is if the battery level number is less than 35, question mark is then change the color of the foreground to that hexadecimal value. Now CF is color foreground, CB color background. See, it is kind of easy when you really look at it. It's going to become a lot easier when you have some practice. So if you want to jump into this, you can. I'm going to be going into much more detail than this when we get to it. There's still a lot to cover. This video is just the beginning. So if you have any questions whatsoever, leave them in the comments below. I'll most likely make a video to answer that question in the next coming days. I do work full-time and I am a student, so these videos aren't going to be super snappy, but they will be out, and we're going to have a lot of fun with Zooper. So I hope you guys enjoy this quick intro to Zooper, and we're going to start diving into more of this in our next video. Thanks for watching, and if you were interested in seeing the previous videos of this series and to see how to customize your Android, go ahead and check the description for the links for that, and I'll put annotations here as well. And if you guys want to keep up and see more of my videos showing how to customize your Android, go ahead and hit the subscribe to not miss a video, and go ahead and hit the like if this was helpful or if you liked the video, and share it if you know some people that are into this sort of thing or are looking to get into it. Alright, thanks again for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.